Hi, I'm Yoshi of Alpaca. I'm panicked about Howard's love to the sushi.
Canute!
Hey, Howard.
You know what?
I don't...
Sorry I was late.
It's okay.
This studio continues to blow my mind. You've done a wonderful job.
Thank you.
That was handwritten by you. How'd I do reading that?
That was great. And will you give me my raise now?
Yes, raise the roof. Today we have a special guest. It crosses so many topics. He lives in Japan. He's pivoted like 7 or 8 times. No, he hasn't pivoted, but it's a really important discussion that I want to have with Yoshi. He doesn't even want to talk about this part, but we're going to do it because here we are in 2022. And I was writing about this yesterday. The tech sector is in disarray. And when I say disarray, it means billionaires are just less billionaires. But in disarray in the sense that people cannot get enough tech, but yet the public market tech stocks, other than Apple and Google, are selling off in massive drips and drabs, 5-10% a day. And in this world, where all this money has been printed and all this COVID has brought tech forward, the private markets have become the cool place. And the prices are not coming down in the private markets. And when I met Yoshi, who is our guest today from Alpaca, and he's calling him from Japan, loved him. Ed Sims, a great investor, introduced me to him. The idea has changed since then. But I said, Yoshi, the price just doesn't make sense to me. I'm going to be partners with you for 7 to 10 years. We're partners. I can't work for this little. And here we are, flash forward 4 or 5 years later. Yoshi went and raised money at a higher valuation through Y Combinator. Full circle of 2-3 years ago, came back to Social Lever and said, you were right, or can you relook at this? And so many lessons to be taught and learn. And Yoshi had to do so much work with his partner, Hitoshi, to restructure the company that was a seed stage business with YC money, take new investors, kind of a recap at many levels, and today has built one of the most incredible fintech companies. And so it's fun when things are working right. There's no guarantee that Alpaca becomes this huge success, but we are on a path, or he is on a path, or the cap table's on a path where it's a win-win. And I don't think we're seeing enough of that these days, the art of, both sides winning. So I want to talk about that, but I also really think we need to talk about fintech, which is great timing. It has been an epic fintech crash in the public markets. Robinhood traded as high as $70. It's $15, $14. Square was at $300 just 3-4 months ago. It's $100 today. PayPal was a $300 stock, $120.
Wow.
So everything in fintech is busted, as they would say, technically busted, can't find buyers. But in the private market, people can't get enough of crypto. They can't get enough of talking about stocks. And Alpaca, I'll let Yoshi describe the product himself, is powering the next generation of Robinhoods around the world. And now also the next Coinbases with crypto. And so they are the plumbing that will help a next generation of entrepreneurs build brokerage and trading apps and investing apps. So that is, in a nutshell, I'll let Yoshi explain it himself. But I think we can talk about 2 things, fintech and the stress of a recap and the stress of losing momentum at an early stage. And for all those founders out there that listen, we don't talk about this enough because it's not fun, but for those people pricing their companies to perfection in the first year of their life, be careful what you wish for because things can go sideways. So you ready, Canute?
I am.
Let's bring on Yoshi.
Sounds good.
Yoshi!
Howard! What's up?
Japan!
Exactly, I'm from Kyoto.
Kyoto. What time is it in Kyoto?
Right now it's 4:20 a.m.
Now, is it true? I ask you this every time, but I'm always hoping for a different answer. Can you predict the stock market because you're ahead of time?
That's what I was wishing all my life.
So it doesn't work? It just seems like it would work. You're in Japan. You call me. I buy stocks. You already know the price.
Yeah, that's like Back to the Future, right?
But the thing is, 100 years ago, that actually was a thing. Like, that's what it was.
Yeah, and I think that is the case for the, crypto probably like 5 years ago.
And even a little bit today, and we can get into latency.
Yep.
So, Yoshi, tell everybody quick summation,
Yep.
a little bit about the company, what you're focused on, the size of the company.
Yep.
Fire away.
Yeah, sure. Alpaca is an API-first brokerage platform for stocks and the crypto. So we help developers, companies to build and embed investing into their applications and build next investing apps and trading features. And right now we grew to be about like 165 people. We have about like 40, 50 apps live built on top of our platform.
In how many countries?
Yeah, so we have probably about like 20 countries or so. That's working in terms of our app. Our users coming from close to 100 countries.
And when you first started Alpaca, what was the original idea? What was the passion? What was your big idea?
Yes, we initially thought that just kind of combining tech and fintech together and like building something, and then we found out this specific one problem, that programmatic access to the capital markets was very, very hard. So we just really try to build the best developer experience API product that connects to the stock market and capital markets in general. So that was really the simple idea that we started when re-pitching you about the product that when we talked to you.
And what year was that?
I think it was like 2019 when we got reconnected. But I think when I met with you at Stockwerberfest, that was probably like in 2016 or something, or 2017.
And when did you originally move to the States?
I moved to the States at 2015.
And how has it been now being back in Japan? What's the scene like? What's the difference that you're seeing building the business now in Japan versus, Silicon Valley?
Yeah, so I think that's an interesting question, right? And, I moved to Japan almost now like 12 months ago. But after the COVID, I was always at house, at home and doing the remote meetings with anyone, everyone. So actually my life really didn't change much in terms of my work. The only thing that changed is really how quickly we can get the sushi in Japan.
Yeah, you can just cast a line out your back door and just bring in a tuna. Isn't that how it works in Japan? Or a
Yeah,
dolphin?
exactly. Yeah, definitely.
Is it one-to-one?
Cut the pieces, yeah.
So recruiting, how is it different in a world where you're not living in the United States? Easier, harder, different?
Yeah, I think it's I can pitch it in a way that we've been talking about fully remote distributed workplace that works globally. And me being outside the US, it actually creates a more convincing story, right? Because the CEO is actually outside of the US and trying to hire from everywhere instead of the executive teams are in the US. So I think it created more convincing story for the people who's listening to our pitch.
Building this company, it's constantly have to think 10 steps ahead, both from a legal, compliance, technology standpoint, where the markets are headed. What's the most surprising thing in the last few years? Is it crypto? What is the most surprising thing about just that you're seeing in fintech?
I think the one of the biggest surprising thing is I think we may be talking more about this, but really how much of the tailwinds that we have been receiving just in this fintech world, that was just not imaginable a couple years ago when the COVID happened, right? And I think that whole tailwinds was extremely surprising. At the same time, that created this massive velocity not only to the early stage startups and entrepreneur scenes in the fintech, but also more of the growth stage companies and startups and companies who went IPO to be forced to think even bigger and outside the box and grow much faster without thinking about borders of the countries. And I think that was something that really created a lot of the things that's making us think like 3-4 steps ahead. That was originated really by the surprise extreme tailwind that we've been receiving as a fintech industry. Of course, that's a little bit different, looking at the market in the public market last few days to 1 week.
No doubt. So you had this tailwind. Robinhood benefited, I benefit, StockTwits benefit, Coinbase benefit, FTX benefit, Alpaca benefit. Now the air is out. I call it the great round trip. I look at Square, basically the same price. PayPal, basically the same price. These disruptors that were supposed to take over Visa and MasterCard, but I look at American Express and I look at Goldman Sachs and I look at JP Morgan and Schwab, bigger than ever, right? So the tailwind seems to have helped the incumbents, now that we have full circle, this great, I call it round trip. Does that affect how you think about the future? Or is it just, what did investors get wrong and right, knowing that this great round trip happened in fintech? So like you're saying, people still want to invest, no doubt, but the valuations ballooned up and have ballooned right back down in fintech, other than the big banks. Do you think about that, or how does it affect how you're thinking about things?
By the way, I love the word round trip. I think I'm going to continue to use that. That was really good.
Well, it really is. I mean, you look at it, and I've never seen anything like it. It's like this weird explosion, much like 1999. But you could explain it, right? The government was printing, people were stuck at home, and they had more time. And thank God people were connected in Zoom and DocuSign and Robinhood and Coinbase. But nothing has stuck. You know what I mean? Like the businesses did improve. The people were onboarded.
Yep.
They're never going to stop using them, but the prices came all the way back as if COVID never happened. Really never seen anything like that.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's really right. And I think public market is extremely volatile in nature. And I think that in terms of what get affected by that round trip, I see two things. The one thing is more the fundamentally what each of the companies building for. And I think another aspect is that what is this premium that was created by this round trip effect or COVID effect. And I think each of the company, including Alpaca as well, has a very macro theme regardless of this round trip happens or does not happen. And I think our macro bet is really about migration of the wealth of the company who's owning all the stack from the front end to the whole infrastructure is getting divided into the app layer to the infrastructure layer. And I think this migration of this whole industry, I don't think that's going to get affected by the COVID because it's all about optimization. It's all about creativity. And it's also sparked by the innovation of the technology and the innovation of the people who's moving around the world. And COVID basically helped that. And I don't think this doesn't affect in terms of the round trip. People continue to live to the different places. I don't think people will go back to the office as much as we used to. And that doesn't change. So those macro themes are something that we are betting on at Alpaca, and I'm personally believing in. So the yes, there's definitely the effects that impacts the price of the public market, but I think there's also the fundamental value that don't get diminished as we are building towards it.
But great points. Totally my theme, and I think people will look back, whether it's Square or Robinhood or FTX. What were VCs betting on? What were the metrics that might have tricked them and wasted 2 years? Because if you look at Schwab at near all-time highs while the rest of the brokers, the new fintech struggle, maybe it was just always wallet share. And now Schwab is in a position with their market cap to just buy a bunch of these, buy the future. Whereas 2 years ago, it looked like the incumbents were going to eat Schwab's lunch. So it's really, that's what's cool about the public markets, is if your mistakes get amplified and the incumbents are back in power, again, the incumbents will probably screw it up and the markets will do their thing. But right now, Schwab's in a position to buy a lot of the companies that were there to disrupt them, not just a year ago. Really fascinating. And does that affect how you think about things or no?
Actually, like it helps us to think about more. We've been talking with a lot of entrepreneurs, developers, startups around the globe. We're now talking to the more the incumbents as well, and that really helps us what they are thinking, not only from the disruptor perspective, but the incumbents also think like disruptors, right? Like, because I feel Robinhood started like a launch in 2013.
Sure.
And basically it took 10 years for the incumbents to realize or like to become like the disruptors 10 years ago. And I think 10 years is the time enough for the incumbents to realize that this is important, this is needed, we need to really do something about it. And I think there's a very unique timing that you said of the round trip of the COVID of the 2 years. And this 9-10 years, the delta gap from the Robinhood, changing the whole landscape is really matching the timing of this year and next year. I think a lot of incumbents will start moving to become more renewed. And we're actually going to get a lot of benefits from that. So we're very much excited about it because at the end of the day, technology has to be built in certain ways to support those, new ways of the things. So, we've built that stuff. So we're excited about that.
What's interesting to me is I get the excitement of being on the front end and on the back end. The front end being StockTwits and FTX. Well, they're a little bit of both, but StockTwits and Robinhood. And now Alpaca, which deals with the up-and-comers, and you're in a weird position because you have to talk to all the up-and-comers and give them wisdom, but at the same time, you want them all to succeed, but deep down, it's a percentage game and they all can't, not everybody gets a balloon and a lollipop. So you're in that weird position where you want everybody to plug into Alpaca and everybody should be a brokerage and everybody should offer crypto and everybody should have a storefront to sell securities or be the next great wealth manager or the next great Schwab, but it's not going to happen. So you're in an interesting seat, which is always what I loved about Alpaca and always what I hated about Plaid because they had Goldman Sachs looking over their shoulder at their board. So it was always something like knowing the inside baseball. I was always very upset that Plaid let Goldman Sachs onto their cap table. Even if you trust Goldman Sachs, it just smelled to me because why would you let the cat into the rooster or whatever the hell you call it? And do you think about that stuff at all?
By the way, I still remember the tweet storms between you and Zach, right, about this topic.
Yeah, I mean, they didn't need Goldman in the end. That was always my beef with fintech. Is like, if you're going to disrupt people, don't let them in the room, especially early. It was just a style thing, It doesn't mean. Yeah. And they're laughing all the way to the bank. Don't get me wrong. I'm the idiot. But it always had a bad taste in 2015, 2016 that, hey, man, we're here to disrupt Goldman, but they're investors.
Yeah.
But that's how business works.
Yeah.
And that's just a tweet. How do you think about it knowing that you're in this weird position to talk to all these founders building, loving your product? Like I talked to a lot of the founders because we invested in GoTrade, which is plugged into you in Singapore and Malaysia. How do you size people up and how can Alpaca help not just with the technology? How much does Alpaca play a role in this stuff?
Yeah. I think there's also this industry problem of untransparency about how things work. And I think that's making this whole thing into knowledge and wisdom, right? So I feel the companies like ours, it seems that right now we are collecting all the wisdoms and the use cases that we see, but actually it should be all in a way open sourced and those knowledge, and that should be more like a water, the public utility, so that people don't think,
correct,
oh, this is unique, right? And when we can achieve that level of transparency and open sourceness of it, I think that things want to turn around and people think that, yeah, of course, we know that, you know that as well, let's compete in the different, the verticals, right? And the different layers. And I think that's something that we need to work towards as Alpaca, instead of us holding back all the knowledge and wisdoms, but really open sourcing it, really sharing it as much as possible.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard for me to contain my excitement because I'm so weird that Alpaca is like, I don't have favorite kids. But obviously, I do like Rachel better than Max. And Max doesn't listen to this podcast. But at the same time, I just love this idea because if people say I share too much, and I do, there's telephone, there's telefax, and there's telehowie. That's the joke. And I'm just doing it because open book, no one's listening. And that's why I love open source, right? Like who really is listening? When I talk about relative strength, IBD had all this great data that was shared and nobody really and they're giving it away. It really does work. And yet it's so hard to do. And so you're in this position with software where eventually it does get open source. But as we've seen in the real world, the media then spins it and people believe like things that you can't imagine they believe, even though you can easily check the fact.
Yeah.
So in that world where Alpaca has to build a business, can you spot, do you think you have a feel for when something plugging into Alpaca would work, or is it just impossible?
I think that it is true that this thing is extremely context heavy and complex compared to anything else, right? Like, how the things work in the behind the scene. And, that even creates this kind of conspiracy. And I even feel that the reason why it became so untransparent is that the fact you buy, the Netflix shares on Robinhood or like buy Netflix shares on the Charles Schwab is exactly the same. Like if you buy an Apple share, exactly the same. But if you buy an actual Apple from Walgreens and if you buy an Apple from Whole Foods, it's a different quality. So there's extremeness of this financial services that it's exactly the same, which means you need to compete against something else. And I think people tend to towards that being secretive creates this information asymmetry that creates secrecy and secretness of this whole industry, and that created this untransparency and that distrust to this whole system, and that created a lot of discussion and argument. So we really need to change that, and that's something that we have to really work hard because we are fortunate to be in this infrastructure play that get access to a lot of things, and we need to be able to contribute back so that this whole system can change a little bit better and open. So that's at least what I think.
That's a really good point about people worrying about the wrong thing, right? Like the price of cereal, on an apple is different down the street, but even though Apple, you buy a share of Apple or half a share of Apple or 1,000 shares of Apple, it's pretty close to the same no matter where you go. Yep. Everybody's up in arms. Everybody was up in arms. So in the world where everybody is up in arms, and you are an arms dealer in a sense, meaning you're supplying the pipes and the knowledge for people to do this, what advice would you give to Robinhood or the next Robinhood when they have to answer about payment for order flow? What could Robinhood have done better in hindsight, in your opinion? We're not fanning flames. We're just trying to I don't understand how out of hand this got. And, who cares? It's over. Everybody's got to deal with it. No different than Chipotle's causing food poisoning. It took a few years. Maybe Robinhood will not have that luxury that Chipotle's had. What was going through your mind, and what do you think now that you have to deal with the same issues and arm all these people that have to deal with how they charge their customers? What do you think is the right take, or is there no way to win?
I think there's the only way to win is to understand the customers and really focus on what the people are feeling and wanting. And it's again all different from each countries and jurisdictions. There's different demands and different pricing sensitivity of the people want to pay. And it took us long time for us to realize this, as you may know, because I've been pitching you so many things in the past as well. And when we realized that fact that it's so different emotionally from different countries, different even segments in this United States, people need different things, and that is the actual value instead of the infrastructure or pipe. So we believe Alpaca, we have to build the pipe. But at the end of the day, ultimately, this is just a pipe, and the utility it should not be valued, and that's why it's so valuable. Like it's right, like water is not valuable because you get it from everywhere, but and that's why it's so valuable. And that's how I think about the business that we do. And like to get to this point, like it took us a lot of like pivots, a lot of understanding, and a lot of failures that we had to go through to really understand what is the truth that we're going for. And otherwise we cannot really set up this strong vision to pursue this like super full swing to the the very long term goal.
Yeah, I really.
And you've seen that. You've seen the journey that we went through.
Yeah, I've seen the journey. I really love the journey when the founder also loves the journey, which you guys have had to eat some shit and really fall on your swords, as they say in Japanese culture, and you really took the I told you so's really well from people like me who can't help themselves. But you're seeing this happen from a different seat, right? Like now you have a bit of a hot company and investors call you again. And that happened to you very early on, even though you didn't have product market fit the first go around. Is there any advice that you could give to founders having been through a couple cycles, seen this fintech great, what we call it, the great
round trip?
Yeah, the great round trip, having to redo your cap table. You're seeing this stuff now with 30 million pre-seed money. People leave plaid. They only think the world is rosy. Anything that you could pass on about having built a cap table, like what you think is the right way to do it?
Yeah, I think like we always have to think about, like as you've been saying, 3-4 steps ahead. And I think like 3-4 steps ahead, not in terms of the product development or infrastructure upgrade, but also the fundraising strategy 3-4 steps ahead. Mm-hmm. When we are raising money, what are we raising to achieve this for? And when we achieve that, what is it there in terms of the market environment, and what is the appetite that we can receive? So I think that, and it comes from also the experience, and that's why like serial entrepreneur has advantage of understanding that like whole game. But I think like most of the people don't. Obviously, we didn't. So like we didn't understand how important that was, or like it was critical that we had to think that way, which we didn't know. So I think like the one thing is to really listen carefully to what advisors or trusted mentors say to myself about, you should be really considering that or thinking about these steps, like what you're doing for, instead of, oh, this is great because this is high, it's better. It's actually higher, it's not better. Balanced is the best. Lower is not better either. It just has to be, both of the party have to be in the same agreement. So it's all about that. And I think like we feel the same way in terms of the hiring too, any negotiation as well. And I think like fundraising is really the combination of the negotiation and understanding where the market is.
Yeah, I think you guys have done a beautiful job. I mean, we don't talk about it enough, but Hatoshi's been with you through this whole thing. How did you guys, and he's like a 10 times engineer. You hear that tossed around. What is his jiu-jitsu, like, is he just born with it, or does he understand things in a different way? What's it like working with someone that can just create?
Yeah. I think like he was not like born that way with like an extreme technical skill, but like I think he's a rugby person, right? He's a rugger man, and he doesn't give up. He never compromises. Like he doesn't care how he's tired or how he knows he just needs to move forward, and he just needs to get stuff done. And I think like that made him so good at what he does, and so good at surrounding things that he does, and that's why like I think he's been really great to be doing these hard times together, because like he doesn't give up, and I cannot give up either because he's not giving up. So like we need to keep pushing, and we need to also learn, and it doesn't matter. So I think that is really the characteristic he was born with to be where he is now.
And is he having fun?
Yeah, I'm sure he's having fun. Like he's thinking about a lot of future stuff as well, while trying to deal with like the hyper growth that we're experiencing. And like I think hyper growth in terms of not only the demand and product, but also how to manage the team, how to manage the organization. And I think that's also the new learning that we have to go through. It's a very, very interesting time for us to get a lot of learnings.
Yeah, for me, hyper growth I saw it in Robinhood. I see it sometimes at Stock Twits, obviously, and there are always different reasons. I've seen it at Manscaped, at LifeLock, at Buddy Media. I've seen it. I feel it for you, even though I only talk to you once in a while, because my phone and the delight. Like I was talking to Evlock at AngelList, and I was like, "Have you heard of Alpaca?" And he goes, "No." And this guy, he hears of everything. So I said, type it into your, because we were talking about brokerage and we were talking about AngelList and we were talking about, wallet share and blah, blah, blah. And he typed it in and he goes, whoa. It's so, like developers know, like Avlock's like
Yep.
a serious engineer, developer, design. He sees a lot of stuff. And I always love that. I know when people just stop, because it's a complicated thing what you guys are doing. Mm-hmm. And it took me a long time to be able to package it and explain it. And obviously Plaid helped people understand what this was. Not you directly, but like this API, and Twilio did this, and some other companies that have done great things in the developer space and API space. But I know it's hot when people haven't heard about it and then they see it and go, whoa. So it's really fun to see that. What country is surprising you the most about their love of stocks and crypto?
I think the one region that we see a lot of heat that's coming up is definitely Southeast Asia right now. And I think in Asia in general, looking at the traditionally foreign exchange has been very big, and a lot of speculations around there in terms of the money. So we see a lot of exciting things happening in the Southeast Asia as a whole, and we start seeing a lot of excitement around Africa too. And I think how the users think about stocks and crypto interest, it also comes with the push by entrepreneurs locally. This would be great for some people. I think maybe end users have more interest, but if there's no entrepreneurs who's trying to provide that, give the solution to fill that gap, we wouldn't see that the interest that end users have. And I think that's what we are seeing. The entrepreneurs are also very, very much standing up to fill that gap for certain regions, in those regions. And we definitely start seeing this extreme interest and then passion that's going into this stocks and crypto.
And crypto, because when you started this, it wasn't even on the radar. So what is it like dealing with a world gone bonkers for crypto when you were building so long for one set of parameters? Does it excite you as a person, or are you just aggravated because it's just making your life harder? Or is it actually, as a stock guy and as a markets guy, are you excited by it? What do you see?
Well, I'm super excited about whole crypto. I mean, it's a freedom, right? I love freedom. So this whole decentralization, I always, fascinated about the idea. So I love the whole thing. And I think crypto, it goes into different things, right? We think about crypto not only about the asset class. I think about it in terms of the new way of incentivize things, a new way to restructure our system. So there are many things that's related to that, and we have a bunch of the strategies specifically around the crypto and Web 3.0. But we're very much excited, and I think it's going to be, of course, as big and even bigger if we think in terms of 10, 20, even 50 years horizon. So I think that's something that we have to make sure that we are providing the access to the 7.9 billion people in the world.
Yeah, that's a good take. Are you a Bitcoin maximalist in your heart, or is that not mean freedom? Meaning, what's your take on Jack?
Well, someone has to play that role, right? Otherwise nothing.
So you're saying he thinks he's Jesus? Okay, that's a good take.
It's the same thing, right? We have our own ideas and ideals, and we also have a life with our family and kids. Mm-hmm. And there is someone sometimes so unique that that she or he can put everything, at least in terms of the media exposure and the public figure, to do that. So I think that's a great way to do it. And at the same time, I also have to think about as a CEO of the company, what is really the risk and the timing we have to position ourselves. So there's multiple layers of the thought process that's always going around my head around crypto and Bitcoin, for sure.
This is why you have a chance of being a great CEO and I a complete failure. But I will spin it in and say, first you called Jack Jesus, and then you said he'd be better off if he had a baby and had a baby Jesus because he'd have a better interpretation of the world. Hopefully the media doesn't run with that, but that is my interpretation. And you may be out of a job, and I'm worried about that because I might have screwed my own company. But you said that in the most diplomatic, lovely way. You know, it's you have to think about it. And I always thought Jack was in a position to do it this way too, which is what's always so frustrating to me about Twitter, Square, the block, whatever you're going to call it, is that, oh my God, he was there like right there at the center of it all. And with Ev and the whole board and whatever. And it seems to be just frittering away at the edges. And now when I see Jack just talking about Bitcoin maximalism, I'm like, oh, it's such a bad take. But, you know, I'm wrong all the time. Do you like it? Like, do you think it's just a multi-coin world? Do you think it's a multi-coin world?
I think like, you know, when people use the word of like, you know, coins or crypto assets, and I think that's why like it creates some confusion because like, you know, NFT, you know, some people call it part of the coin, but like, of course, it's not really a coin, just a, different form of the assets that's tied to something. And so I think like, you know, this whole technology is just connected to every single thing of its, asset or its or thing or actual currency or coin. So, you know, when we think about like, you know, the dominant currency, reserve currency, like, you know, what it's going to be, I'm sure like it has to be one specific currency or one specific coin. But, you know, there's a bunch of others, like as we see in the world. So like, I think it's going to continue to be the case. And like, I think when we actually exchange things in order to create more convenience, like we have a peer-to-peer payment system like PayPal, we're going to have a, different way to transfer authority and rights and ownership in a much more trusted way. And, you know, that we have the different way to do that through like NFT and, a bunch of other related technologies. So, you know, I think like, you know, it's going to immerse into all of our lives, whatever we touch. But I don't think that's going to happen right away. It's always ups and down towards that direction. But I think it's going to be the future in long-term horizon.
As someone who's leading a big fintech company, and I think of as a thought leader on the pulse of things, who do you look up to in this space right now, in the landscape of fintech? Who is blowing your mind?
That's a very good question. I actually listen to what you say. You talk with like every single person on the planet.
The real Jesus.
No, but like think about it, right? Like, you know everyone. I mean, like, you talk with everyone. And so I get so much from
Except
your
my kids. They won't.
No,
talk
I'm
to me.
serious. That's really the one thing like I always, get a lot of things from. But like I listen to a lot of podcasts. I follow a lot of people. Like I think there's always a consensus of like thought process that we see. And then there's sometimes like it's a very interesting take on some things, but we have to be calm, right? We have to be calm. We have to really understand with our own eyes. So that's what I try to push myself to do.
And what do you feel about the markets here? What's your take? You have a unique, obviously, flow of sentiment from all the different countries around the world in time frames and crypto and stocks and who's plugging in and where growth is. What's your feeling of the world markets?
I think that there's two directions that I kind of think about this like whole round trip. There's a round trip of this like market pricing and how the people are excited about in terms of the capital markets. Another thing we have to think about is that there's actual progress of building the pipes that connects to more people. And it's not affected with the capital markets volatility. It's just simply evolution and the advancement of our whole human race of lowering the borders of the cross-border countries and then, creating a pipes into each individuals in different countries. And that's going to be built as a highway. And it doesn't matter, right? Like, where the prices are in terms of the, capital markets. So that's how I try to think about it and focus on building instead of where the prices are in this shorter term to the midterm price volatility.
Spoken like an incredible leader and entrepreneur. I say this as a salesman. When things are bad in the market, pick up the phone and just do sales because nothing moves the needle like sales. The markets are going to do what the markets are going to do, right? I can't code. I like to write when I'm stressed. And because I can't change the markets, right?
Exactly.
You can make better decisions, but this is when stuff gets built,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
And the
Yep.
great builders love the volatility because it doesn't affect building.
Right.
What affects building is you getting distracted. And I only know sales, so when I'm really struggling, I pick up the phone and talk to people and try and close business because that's all you can do is move the needle. For you, it's just banging out code and making the pipes better and lowering the entries so that this next wave of investors gets better fills, better pricing, better access. Well, you're the man. You are the man. This was always fun. One day we will break you, me, and Canute.
Yes.
And a geisha girl. Is that allowed? A geisha girl or three. We'll come to Kyoto
Kyoto,
catch and kill something.
Yes.
We'll catch and kill something and just stick our teeth into it with some wasabi.
Yes.
And take an Instagram and cause a real panic because Howard killed a dolphin. That is a dream. No, I love dolphins, people. But we will have some fantastic sake and sushi at some point in Kyoto. How is COVID? Are restrictions being lifted at all, or how are you getting closer?
It's been lifted in terms of the internally, but the Omicron's pushing a little bit again. But the country border has been closed, so that has been the problem.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, well, say hi to Hitoshi. All the best to the family. Thanks for working hard. You've got an incredible group of investors, and I say that as the weak link in this group with the Portage people and O'Shaughnessy we have now at the table, and Tribe, and wow.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of pressure on you. You can't fuck this up, man.
Yeah, I know. We got to keep building.
Canute's watching you. Canute's watching you. All right, so get back to work. I, as always, appreciate your time and teaching me this stuff. And go knock them dead. Talk to you soon.
Great. Thank you.
Cheers.
Bye-bye.
Canute.
Howard.
Sorry I was late. Everybody, I'd love to recap this longer. That's Yoshi, alpaca.markets. We didn't get to it. Alpaca.markets. Tell your friends, any developer you have that's interested in markets, you'd be amazed at how easy it is to build product and brokerage ideas on top of this. You're going to see Robinhood times 1,000 out there, unique ways of doing this, all built on Alpaca, voice, TikTok-y, Snapchat-y, Instagram-y. People are going to be investing and trading in all kinds of unique ways and sharing information. Canute, thanks for doing this. You're listening to Panic with Friends. I talk to founders, investors, traders, speculators, venture capitalists, and we try and get a little bit further ahead of the market. You can go to Spotify, Apple, Google, search my name, Howard Lindson, get the podcast Panic with Friends, subscribe once a week. You will get a podcast. Ping, ping. Tell your friends. Please have them subscribe. They're very evergreen. You can go back into the archives and just listen to some great founders. And we'll see you all next week.
Howard Lindzen is the founder and general partner at Social Leverage. All opinions expressed by Howard and podcast guests are solely their own opinions and do not reflect the opinion of Social Leverage or StockTwits. This podcast is for informational purposes only and should not be relied upon for decisions. Guests may maintain positions in securities discussed in this podcast.
And this was always fun. One day we will break you, me, and Canute.
Yes.
And a geisha girl. Is that allowed? A geisha girl or three. We'll come to Kyoto and catch and kill something.
Yes.
We'll catch and kill something and just stick our teeth into it with some wasabi.
Yes.
And take an Instagram and cause a real panic because Howard killed a dolphin. That is a dream. No, I love dolphins, people. But we will have some fantastic sake and sushi at some point in Kyoto. How is COVID? Are restrictions being lifted at all, or how are you getting closer?
It's been lifted in terms of the internally, but the Omicron's pushing a little bit again. But the country border has been closed, so that has been the problem.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, well, say hi to Hitoshi. All the best to the family. Thanks for working hard. You've got an incredible group of investors, and I say that as the weak link in this group with the Portage people and O'Shaughnessy we have now at the table, and Tribe, and wow.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of pressure on you. You can't fuck this up, man.
Yeah, I know. We got to keep building.
Canute's watching you. Knute's watching you. All right, so get back to work. I, as always, appreciate your time and
Thank you,
teaching
Howard.
me this stuff. And go knock 'em dead. Talk to you soon.
Great. Thank you.
Cheers.
Bye-bye.
Knute!
Howard.
Sorry I was late. Everybody, I'd love to recap this longer. That's Yoshi, alpaca.markets. We didn't get to it. Alpaca.markets. Tell your friends, any developer you have that's interested in markets, you'd be amazed at how easy it is to build product and brokerage ideas on top of this. You're going to see Robinhood times 1,000 out there, unique ways of doing this, all built on Alpaca, voice, TikTok-y, Snapchat-y, Instagram-y. People are going to be investing and trading in all kinds of unique ways and sharing information. Knute, thanks for doing this. You were listening to Panic with Friends. I talked to founders, investors, traders, speculators, venture capitalists, and we try and get a little bit further ahead of the market. You can go to Spotify, Apple, Google, search my name, Howard Lindzen, get the podcast Panic with Friends, subscribe once a week. You will get a podcast. Ping, ping. Tell your friends, please have them subscribe. They're very evergreen. You can go back into the archives and just listen to some great founders. And we'll see you all next week.
Howard Lindzen is the founder and general partner at Social Leverage. All opinions expressed by Howard and podcast guests are solely their own opinions and do not reflect the opinion of Social Leverage or StockTwits. This podcast is for informational purposes only and should not be relied upon for decisions. Guests may maintain positions in securities discussed in this podcast. Expressed by Howard and podcast guests are solely their own opinions and do not reflect the opinion of Social Leverage or StockTwits. This podcast is for informational purposes only and should not be relied upon for decisions. Guests may maintain positions in securities discussed in this podcast.